Welcome to Silicon Valley Nonprofits, a service of KMVT Community Media. I'm Bev Lenahan, your host. Today our guest is Karen Rizkalla, Board Chair of the Cupertino Educational Endowment Foundation. Thanks for coming today, Karen. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Very happy to do that. Well, your name is a mouthful. The foundation name is sort of a mouthful. I imagine people call you CEEF for short, which is always interesting if people don't know what's behind it. So tell us a little bit about your mission and what your organization really does to help those KT through 8th graders in the Cupertino Union School District.
Yeah, CEEF was founded back in the 80s. The intent was really to raise and leverage private funds to assist with basically the school district paying for educational excellence in the classrooms, right? So adding to the funding that's provided through the state for the schools. The mission initially was primarily around arts and music because arts and music are always the first things to get cut when you run into any kind of budget issues, right? Over time, we did expand the mission to start including things like technology, professional development for teachers, Common Core resources in most recent years, and even have partnered with CUSD and the community to keep the teachers' jobs out there. So CEEF's helped in a lot of different ways across the years, but the primary focus is to help basically fill the stopgap in funding.
Yes, which, as we know, is sort of organic and dynamic, changing all the time. And so that means that partnership that you have with the school district is very, very important, I'm sure. So how has your mission sort of extended in more detail what the needs are of the school district? I think it has changed, but give us a little bit more about that.
Sure, it has changed over the years. As I mentioned, it started really with the focus on arts and music only, and extended into some of those other areas across the years. Over 30 years that the organization's been around, we've funded over $17.5 million back to the schools.
That's significant.
So it's a large sum of money. It is a large district, though. The Cupertino Union School District actually houses 25 elementary and middle schools.
I don't think people realize that.
Yeah, it's one of the largest in the state. It's roughly 18,000 children, actually, and the needs are great, right? And so the funding that we provide is often in arts and music and technology, but we adjust it as needed and as the funds are available to assist in other areas. So another example of something that we've done is helped out with some of the field trips, like the Yosemite trip that happens each year for the 8th graders and things of that nature. So our goal is to provide educational, assistance and funding, TK through 8th grade, which is all of the grades that the 25 schools have. But what we do specifically each year may adjust based on the need and the availability of funds.
So again, understanding what those needs are requires that partnership with the school district, right? For sure. I know, so it's kind of STEAM that you've been working on lately, right, with the A in arts. Let's talk a little bit about your music program because it's significant.
Yeah, so we've funded music from the beginning, but we do have a current campaign going on to really raise additional funding, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of a fun new campaign for us. In addition to asking for cash appeals, which helps with funding in the classroom, we're also asking for gently used instruments. And so, I mean, music in general is really, really a great thing to have in the schools, and the fact that it's always one of the first things to get cut is heartbreaking to people. One thing that's really important, I think, for people to know is that when students study music, it actually helps with their academics.
Particularly math, right?
Exactly, with math. It even helps with their behavior, right? Having music in the classroom is really important. The district understands that, but can't fund it fully. So part of having the music program, the campaign that's going on now is to provide that additional funding. We have schools right now that have instruments that are older than the children are.
Oh my.
We have schools that can't afford sheet music, right? And so these things are really important. And so we're looking for funding to help fill the growing gap, and also for these instruments, right? So, for example, you have a lot of children in the schools currently, or in the high schools, or in college, or alums that are older now who played an instrument when they were in band in school. They're not playing it anymore, and it's up on a shelf getting dusty somewhere.
It's true.
Right?
We had a trumpet like that.
See, right? So if you could donate that to SEAF, what we're trying to do in this campaign is get that back into the classroom. So we'll go through an effort to refurbish the instruments and get them into the classrooms, into the hands of a child that is looking to play that instrument now. So I have some on my shelves at home too.
Well, it's sort of complex when you think about it. It's not just the instruments. It's getting them refurbished, getting them ready.
Yes.
And I hadn't thought about the sheet music, but how important all of that would be too. So it's sort of a comprehensive program that you're helping to supplement.
And TK to 8, right? So we want to make sure that we're adjusting and providing funding and support as it's appropriate in each of the grades, because what you do in a kindergarten classroom is very different than the needs for music in an 8th grade classroom, right?
Of course.
So there's an adjustment based on the support they need, and all of it costs money, and money is not something, money for music specifically is not something the state provides generally. They're providing money for academics, and so music is in need.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing this process. How is the district funded? You know, this I think is a common misnomer that you're in Cupertino. It's fairly affluent community, so you probably have more money than you know what to do with. So tell us a little bit about why that's not the case.
Yeah, it's the general perception that since we are in Silicon Valley that our schools are well funded. And you do have some districts here that are very well funded, but those districts are following a funding model that's different than Cupertino Union School District. So our district, even though it's one of the largest in the state, receives the lowest funding. And actually, our funding per pupil that we're provided by the government is lower than the national standard.
Oh my.
So we are not receiving the funding that we need on a per pupil basis just to educate the children. Forget any enrichment programs like music and arts and things of that nature, right? So part of the reason why that is the case is that our district is named a revenue limit district. On some of our neighboring districts that receive more funding are basic aid districts. Basically, I mean, simplistically, the difference is the basic aid districts are able to use local property taxes towards the funding in the schools. Revenue limit, that's not allowed. So we receive the funding that we get from the from the state and federal government, but it's below the national standard. And then any additional funding we need to pay for programs has to come from the community. So that's coming either from individual school PTAs and foundations, district-wide foundations like SEAF, or from the larger community in some other capacity.
I'm fairly certain few people understand that. You know, even the residents of Cupertino.
Absolutely.
So part of the foundation's opportunity is to educate folks about that, right? And then to work again with the district people to find out what the priority is on the programs and adjust that as you would, which means the foundation is adjusting your messages out, et cetera. How do the parents learn about SEAF?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. You know, SEAFs, we exist solely to support CUSD. So CUSD helps us in getting the message out to the 25 schools. So there's email distribution. We can be at various activities and events at the schools, things of that nature.
Like back to school night?
Exactly, back to school nights. When a school hosts a choir or a band performance, you know, SEAF can often be there just sort of acknowledging, you know, the great work that the students are doing, that the teacher's doing, and letting them know that some of the funding is coming from SEAF, so there's visibility from things like that. We do host a couple annual events. This year, the two that we're putting the most effort into, we have a winter gala. That's an event that people can attend, learn about our mission, obviously help out.
Anybody can attend it?
Yes, anybody can attend.
Not just parents, but community at large?
Yep, absolutely. And then in a more community-friendly event, because the gala is an adult event is our Run for Great Schools 5K and Fun Run.
Okay.
And that's held in August towards the beginning of the school year, but before all of the activities really get running so that people are available. And that event is great because we've had the last couple of years 1,200 people attend. We're talking little kids,
for the whole family,
students,
and
exactly, for the whole family, grandparents, everyone,
nice.
The larger community, and that race is another great way that people can be involved. So we're trying to, have events to raise awareness. We have the music campaign going on, and there's literature that goes out about that and information. We actually just recently had a baby grand piano donated because someone read about the campaign in the newspaper.
Wonderful.
Unrelated to the school, she just called up and said, I have a piano for you. So it's kind of neat to have the whole community involved.
Well, hopefully this little segment here will help get the word out even in a more broad fashion so people can help support you, even if they don't have kids in school, right?
Absolutely, thank you.
I think oftentimes my generation is now beginning to look at downsizing and things like that. They're getting to the back of those closets and finding things that might be useful. So who knows what will happen. That's really very, very cool. So tell us a little bit about what the community can do to assist. How big is the campaign and how can they help you?
I think at this point we are looking for assistance in various ways for the campaign and for CEEF in general. Cash appeals, individual donations to assist with music are always helpful. They can be small, they can be large, every little bit counts. The collective that we can all put into it generally is a much bigger number, right? So all those little $10 donations really add up, and for those that can give more, that's absolutely helpful as well. The gently used instruments for this campaign specifically are really important because our hope is to collect as many specifically band instruments as we can, refurbish those, get those back into the classroom. Attending our events is another great way to support CEEF. And then we're always in need of volunteer assistance, right? So volunteer assistance to help put on, for example, the 5K. We need to have people helping with the prep work. Exactly, have people out on the course that are making sure that our runners are safe. I mean, there's always different ways in which people could volunteer and help. So if they feel strongly about the mission, they just need to get in touch and we'll figure out which volunteer opportunities are available for them.
And I imagine all of this can happen online from your website?
Yes, our website is ceefcares.org, and in it there's various places.
Say that more slowly, CEEF.
ceefcares.org.
Wonderful, because I remember just looking up CEEF, and now you got to have ceefcares.org. Yes. And I think this is another way where folks who don't have kids in school anymore can look to help. Education's really so key to our future, and being able to have everybody help in a little way makes a big difference. And so what other things besides the music program can you conjure back that's been successful that you feel really good about?
So the music program is the current one. That's why there was so much attention put on that from me. But I mentioned earlier funding for Yosemite. Some of the other things we've done in the past were to put funding into the district to utilize in a way where they were able to purchase nonfiction books, because when the state pushed us over to Common Core as the new standard in the classroom, we found that the majority of our schools and our school libraries were focused on fiction books. So there was a growing need to have nonfiction resource materials in the classroom and in the libraries. So we ran a campaign a couple of years ago for that. A little farther back, one of the things that I'm the most proud of is CEEF's involvement in the Their Future Is Now campaign. That was a campaign that was a grassroots parent movement joined with CEEF in order to save 115 teachers' jobs.
That's fabulous. Well, we're going to have to end for today, but I want to thank you so very much, and all good fortune with CEEF's music campaign and all the work that you're doing. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.